You're not in this photo, sweetie. Family only. My father's new wife, Veronica, smiled as she positioned herself front and center, pushing me toward the coat check like I was a piece of unwanted luggage. Her daughter, Madison, giggled behind a champagne flute that cost more than my entire outfit. They had no idea that in exactly 4 minutes, this entire birthday celebration would come to a legally binding halt. And I wasn't going to stop it. Before I tell you how I terminated my own father's 60th birthday party using nothing but a lease agreement and a shareholder vote, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I want to see how far this reaches. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I stepped out of frame and watched the photographer position them under the crystal chandelier. My father stood in the center, beaming, flanked by Veronica in her Valentino dress and Madison in head-to-toe Gucci. The golden family. The successful family. The family that apparently didn't include the daughter who'd been there for 30 years before Veronica showed up 18 months ago. Veronica had insisted on hosting Dad's birthday at Meridian, the most exclusive restaurant in the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor, a Michelin-starred chef, a wine cellar that required an appointment just to browse. She'd reserved the entire private dining room, invited 50 of their closest friends and associates, and spent the last 2 weeks posting about it on Instagram with hashtags like blessed and family first. What she didn't know was that I'd been eating ramen 3 nights a week for the past 2 years so I could afford to buy this building when the previous owner ran into tax trouble. Every crystal glass they were holding, every imported marble tile under their feet, every breath of climate-controlled air they were enjoying belonged to me. Madison appeared at my elbow, her perfume so heavy it made my eyes water. I mean, I get it, she stage whispered to her friend, loud enough for me to hear. Dad feels bad because she's basically charity. Like, she works in IT or something. So sad. But you can't let pity ruin the aesthetic of a party. You know? Her friend nodded sympathetically, glancing at my dress. It was navy blue, simple, from Target. I'd bought it on sale for $18 because I just wired $15,000 to cover my father's medical bills after his insurance denied a procedure. I wore clearance rack clothes so he could afford name brand health. The maitre d', Antoine, caught my eye from across the room. He'd worked here for 3 years, since before I bought the building. He knew exactly who signed his paychecks. His eyebrow raised slightly, a silent question. I shook my head. Not yet. I checked my phone. 7:14 p.m. I'd wait until 7:18. I wanted to see how far they'd take this. Veronica tapped a fork against her champagne flute, the sharp crystal ring silencing the room. She cleared her throat, her voice dripping with practiced sweetness. I just want to take a moment to thank everyone for coming to celebrate my incredible husband's 60th birthday. These past 18 months have been such a journey. When I met David, he was drowning, financially and emotionally. His late wife had just passed, his business was failing, and he was so lost. I felt my jaw clench. My mother had died 3 years ago, not 6 months before Veronica appeared. And Dad's business hadn't been failing. It had been temporarily underwater due to a bad investment, an investment I'd quietly fixed. But Veronica wasn't done. She placed a manicured hand on Dad's shoulder. I helped him rebuild. We restructured his company, found new investors, turned everything around. And now, look at us. She gestured around the opulent room. Thriving. Blessed. Surrounded by people who actually matter. Madison raised her glass. To family. Real family. The room echoed the toast. To family. I stayed silent. I stayed still. I watched my father, waiting for him to correct her, to acknowledge me, to say something. He smiled, kissed Veronica's cheek, and thanked everyone for coming. He didn't look at me once. That was when I felt it. Not sadness. Not anger. Just a cold, crystalline clarity. See, people like Veronica are predators, but they're not random. They calculate. When she walked into my father's life, she saw a grieving widower with a struggling business and a grown daughter who worked in technology, which to someone like her meant nerdy and poor. She saw an opportunity. She didn't attack me out of cruelty. She attacked me strategically. To establish dominance, to mark territory, to ensure that when the will was read and the assets divided, I'd be too beaten down to fight back. What she didn't calculate was that I'm not in IT support. I don't fix printers and reset passwords. I build platforms. I'm a software engineer who spent 8 years coding for a big tech giant until I had enough saved to start my own consulting firm. And when I say consulting firm, I mean I create infrastructure solutions for mid-sized businesses and commercial properties. Automation, security systems, operational efficiency, the unsexy back-end work that makes buildings and businesses run. 3 years ago, when Dad's business partner embezzled $500,000, Dad called me at 2 a.m. panicking. The company was going under. He'd lose everything. I didn't sleep that night. I liquidated my savings, my stock options, everything I'd been hoarding for a down payment on a house, and I bought a 40% stake in his company as a silent partner. I fixed the accounting, fired the partner, renegotiated contracts, and within 18 months the business was profitable again. Dad never told anyone where the angel investor money came from. He said it was a private equity firm, too complicated to explain. He didn't want people to know his daughter had bailed him out. It would make him look weak. And then there was this building. When Meridian's owner got hit with a tax lien 2 years ago, the property went to auction. I bought it for 60 cents on the dollar. I kept the restaurant open, kept the staff employed, renovated the HVAC system and the kitchen, and tripled the property value. I never told Dad. I never told anyone. I drove a 12-year-old Honda with a cracked windshield because every dollar I had went into investments that would never have my name attached to them in public. I looked at Veronica now, glowing in the center of the room, holding court. I looked at Madison, scrolling through Instagram, probably posting another story about how blessed she was. I looked at the imported orchids on every table, the gold-rimmed china, the bottles of crystal being poured like water. And I did the math. The private dining room rental fee for tonight, $8,000. Veronica paid with Dad's credit card, a card attached to his business account, a business I owned 40% of. The catering, the flowers, the photographer, the valet service. Another $12,000 all billed to the company as a client entertainment expense. The designer dresses, the jewelry. Veronica's personal shopping spree last week, $6,000 charged to a joint account she'd convinced Dad to open 3 months into their marriage. I'd paid for this party. I'd paid for everything. I'd starved my own life to feed theirs, and they'd used my money to erase me from the family photo. The invisible ledger in my mind snapped open. I saw every late night I'd worked while they vacationed in Cabo. Every canceled plan because I was debugging code to pay for Dad's mortgage. Every time I'd said I couldn't afford to join them for dinner while I wired money to keep his lights on. I pulled out my phone. Not to scroll social media. To open the property management app. I scrolled to the current event listing. Sterling's 60th birthday celebration, private dining room, Meridian restaurant, status, active. I pulled up the lease agreement. Section 9. Subsection C. The clause I'd insisted on when I purchased the building and renegotiated the restaurant's lease. It gave the property owner, me, the unilateral right to terminate any event on the premises if the event host engaged in discriminatory behavior, harassment, or created a hostile environment for any guest or staff member. Veronica had just announced to a room of 50 people that I didn't matter. That I wasn't real family. On my property. I texted Antoine, the maitre d', code 9C, host. Execute immediately. I watched him read the message. His eyes went wide. He looked at me across the room. I nodded once. He moved toward the DJ booth, where soft jazz had been playing in the background. The music died with a scratchy halt. The house lights came up, full brightness, killing the romantic candlelit ambiance and replacing it with harsh, unforgiving fluorescent reality. What? Veronica gasped, shielding her eyes. What's happening? Who turned off the music? I walked slowly toward the front of the room. I didn't hurry. I let them see me coming. Madison noticed first. Oh my God, she hissed to her friend. Is she seriously walking up there? Veronica's smile tightened into something sharp and dangerous. Excuse me, she said, her voice loud and commanding. This is a private event. You need to leave. Now. Actually, Veronica, I said, my voice calm and clear. You need to leave. In about 3.5 minutes. To be exact. The room went silent. Every head turned toward me. I pulled out my phone and held it up, the screen displaying the lease termination clause. I am invoking Section 9, subsection C of the commercial lease agreement for this property. Any event host who engages in discriminatory or harassing behavior toward guests or staff may be subject to immediate termination of services, non-refundable. What are you talking about? Madison shrieked. You don't work here. You're just Dad's weird daughter who codes or whatever. No, I said calmly. I don't work here. I own here. I own this building. I've owned it for 2 years. Every tile you're standing on, every glass you're holding, every fork you're using, it's mine. And you? I looked directly at Veronica, just spent the last 20 minutes publicly humiliating me, excluding me from family photos, and announcing to 50 people that I don't matter. On my property, the silence that followed was so heavy I could feel it pressing against my chest. Veronica's face went white. Then red. Then white again. That's ridiculous, she stammered. David, tell her. Tell her she's being insane. My father stood frozen, his champagne glass halfway to his lips. Claire, he said quietly. What are you talking about? I bought Meridian 2 years ago, Dad. When the previous owner defaulted on his taxes and the property went to auction. I paid cash. I renovated it. I've been your landlord this whole time. Veronica laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. You're broke, Claire. You drive a car from 2012. You dress like you shop at thrift stores. You don't have that kind of money. I looked at her steadily. No, Veronica. I have exactly that kind of money. I just chose to spend it on things that mattered instead of things that impressed people like you. Prove it. Madison spat. You're lying. This is pathetic. I turned to Antoine. He stepped forward, tablet in hand. Miss Hartley is the sole owner of Meridian Properties LLC, he said calmly. She purchased the building in February 2024 for $2.7 million. All lease agreements, all vendor contracts, all operational decisions go through her. I pulled up my phone and cast it to the large screen TV mounted on the wall, the one they'd been using to display a photo slideshow of Dad and Veronica's relationship. The photos vanished, replaced by a property deed. Owner, Claire Marie Hartley. Property, 447 Harbor Boulevard, including all commercial and retail spaces. Gasps rippled through the room. But I wasn't done. I swiped to the next document, a corporate shareholder agreement, Sterling Industrial Solutions. Shareholders, David Sterling, 55%, Anonymous LLC 40%. I looked at my father. Dad, remember when your business partner stole $500,000 and you thought you'd lose everything? Remember the angel investor who saved you? His face went gray. I'm not anonymous anymore, I said quietly. I swiped again, revealing the LLC registration documents. Claire M. Hartley, sole proprietor. I bought 40% of your company 3 years ago. I saved it. I restructured the contracts. I fired the embezzler. I kept you afloat. The room was dead silent now. Not a glass clinked. Not a breath was audible. Veronica's mouth opened and closed like a fish. That's you. You never said anything. You never asked, I replied. You assumed I was poor because I'm quiet. You assumed I was irrelevant because I don't post my bank statements on Instagram. You calculated that I was weak, and you built your entire strategy around destroying me before I could become a threat. You made a mistake, Veronica. You confused silence with powerlessness. I looked at the room, at all the people who'd watched me get pushed out of the family photo, who'd heard Madison call me Charity, who'd listened to Veronica's speech about real family. I checked my watch. 7:18 p.m. Time's up. I turned to Antoine. Please inform the guests that this event is terminated effective immediately due to a violation of the property's conduct policy. They have 10 minutes to collect their personal belongings and exit the premises. If anyone is still here at 7:28, building security will escort them out. Antoine nodded. He turned to the room. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to inform you that this event has been cancelled. Please gather your things and proceed to the exits. Valet will have your vehicles ready. Chaos erupted. Guests started talking all at once, grabbing purses and coats, demanding explanations. Veronica lunged toward me, her face twisted with rage. You can't do this. This is David's birthday. You're ruining everything. You vindictive little. Actually, Veronica, I interrupted, my voice ice cold. I can do this. It's in the lease. It's in the law. You harassed a guest, me, on my property. That's grounds for immediate termination. And if you'd like to dispute it, you're welcome to contact my attorney. I'll have Antoine give you the number. She spun toward my father. David. David, do something. Stop her. My father looked at me. For the first time in 18 months, really looked at me. Claire, he said, his voice shaking. Is this true? All of it? Every word, I said. I saved your business, Dad. I bought this building. I've been supporting you financially for 3 years, and you never once asked where the money came from. You told Caleb it was a private equity firm. You were embarrassed that your daughter had to rescue you. I didn't know, he whispered. You didn't want to know, I corrected. It was easier to believe I was struggling than to admit you needed me. Veronica grabbed his arm. David, she's lying. She's manipulative. She's trying to ruin us because she's jealous. I pulled out my phone one more time. I pulled up my banking app, the one connected to the corporate account for Dad's business. I turned the screen toward him. Look at the deposits, Dad. Every quarter for 3 years. Capital infusions. Emergency loans. Operational support. My name is on every single transaction. He looked at the screen. His hands started shaking. I invested $470,000 into your company, I said quietly. I bought this building for $2.7 million. I've been your landlord, your investor, and your daughter. And tonight, you let your new wife tell me I don't belong in the family photo. The room had mostly emptied now. Guests were filing out, whispering, casting glances back at us. Madison was crying, her makeup running, frantically texting someone. Veronica stood frozen, her perfect facade cracking. I looked at my father one last time. You have until Monday, Dad. Monday at 9 a.m. You can come to my office, and we can talk about what happens next. You can apologize. You can acknowledge what I've done. And we can renegotiate our relationship, business and personal. Or, I paused, you can choose her. You can choose the woman who married you for your money. Money that only exists because of me. And if you choose her, I will exercise my rights as a 40% shareholder to call for a vote of no confidence in current management. I will remove you from your own company. And I will terminate the lease on this building, effective immediately, which means Meridian will close, and the $8,000 you spent tonight will be the least of your financial problems. Claire, he whispered. Please. I'm not trying to hurt you, Dad, I said, and I meant it. I'm trying to make you see me. I've been invisible for 3 years. I've sacrificed everything to keep you afloat, and you didn't even notice. You didn't even say thank you. You let her call me Charity. I walked toward the exit. Antoine held the door open for me. As I passed him, I said quietly, please have accounting send the final invoice to Mr. Sterling's business account. Mark it as event cancellation fee, non-refundable. He nodded. Of course, Miss Hartley. I stepped out into the cool night air. The valet brought my car around, my ancient, reliable Honda with the cracked windshield and the dent in the passenger door. I slid into the driver's seat and sat there for a moment, my hands on the steering wheel. My phone buzzed. A text from Dad. We need to talk. I deleted it. Another text, from Veronica. You're going to regret this. I blocked her number. A third text from an unknown number. This is Dad's attorney. We need to discuss the shareholder situation. I forwarded it to my own attorney with a note. Handle this. I drove home to my tiny studio apartment, the one I'd been renting for $1,200 a month because I'd spent every other dollar I had building an empire in the shadows. I walked past the secondhand furniture, the stacks of coding books, the single window with a view of a brick wall. I sat down at my desk and opened my laptop. I pulled up the spreadsheets, the ones I kept meticulously updated. Assets owned, 3 commercial properties, a 40% stake in a profitable manufacturing company, a growing consulting business with 6-figure annual revenue. Net worth, $4.2 million. I looked at the numbers. I'd built this. Not with a trust fund. Not with a lucky break. With late nights and ramen dinners and a car that barely ran. With sacrifice and silence and a stubborn refusal to quit. They'd looked at me tonight and seen a failure. A charity case. A girl in a cheap dress who didn't belong. They'd seen what they wanted to see because it made them feel powerful. They'd forgotten that power isn't given. It's built. Quietly. Patiently. In the dark where no one's watching. On Monday morning, my phone rang at 8:47 a.m. It was Dad. I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 8:52. Again at 9:01. At 9:15 he texted, I'm outside your office. Please. I looked out the window of my consulting firm's small office suite. He was there standing on the sidewalk, no Veronica, no Madison. Just him, looking older than I remembered, holding 2 cups of coffee. I walked downstairs and opened the door. He handed me a coffee. Your favorite, he said quietly. Caramel macchiato, extra shot. I took it. I didn't drink it. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't know. And that's not an excuse. I should have asked. I should have seen. I should have. He trailed off. You should have been my dad, I said. Not my client. Not my business partner. My dad. He nodded, his eyes red. Veronica is gone. I asked her to leave this morning. Madison too. They're moving out. I didn't ask you to do that, I said. I know, he replied. But you were right. About everything. She married me for money that wasn't even mine. And I let her treat you like you didn't matter because it was easier than admitting I'd failed. I failed your mother. I failed the business. And I couldn't stand the idea that my daughter had to save me. We stood there in silence for a long moment. I'm keeping my shares, I said finally. And I'm keeping this building. And if you ever let someone treat me like that again, I'm gone. Permanently. He nodded. I understand. But, I paused, if you want to try, actually try. To rebuild this, I'm willing to have coffee. Once a week. No business talk. Just us. He looked at me, hope flickering in his eyes. Just us? Just us. I confirmed. He smiled, a real smile, the first one I'd seen in years. I'd like that. I unlocked the office door and held it open. He followed me inside, and for the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. I felt valued. And I felt powerful. Not because I'd destroyed them. Because I'd finally stopped letting them destroy me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't tearing someone down. It's building yourself up so high they can't touch you anymore. And sometimes, family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the people who see your worth, even when you're standing in an $18 dress at the back of the room. I learned that night that silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. And the quietest person in the room is often the one who holds all the cards. They thought I was playing their game. They didn't realize I'd changed the rules years ago.